Hi, good day, and welcome again to A Place Called Through. I'm your host, Patricia Wade Goings, broadcasting live from WYTV7 Christian Broadcasters Network. We share a mission of hope. Our hope is to encourage, inspire others, and we do so globally. And today we have a guest coming from Uganda, Africa, and he's going to share his mission of hope, his story, the trials and all the testimonies that he will share that have gotten him through this place called through. And it's all being done so by your charitable donations. So we ask that you continue to give. We thank you in advance for your donations. And if you'd like to give that donation to help this mission, please visit our website at wytv7.org. And we'd like to welcome as our guest all the way from Uganda, Africa, and we're going to welcome to A Place Called Through, Mr. Milton Opaya. Mr. Opaya, we sure are delighted that you've taken this time out to come talk to our listeners and our viewers about your story, that mission of hope that you have. Welcome to this place called Through.
Thank you. It's my pleasure to share my hope and my testimony with you.
We are sure honored again to have you as our guest, and we want to talk to our listeners and our viewers a little bit about your life and how you got through this place. We know that in your early childhood, life had always not been so pleasant. Unlike many children globally, they have different trials and tribulations, but yours was really significant. And the fact that you grew up in Uganda and you grew up in a family, a peasant family. And I understand that one of your siblings died of malaria. And in Uganda, at that time, there was no hospitals, there were no schools, there was no rescue, there was no mission to help. And if it was many, many miles away. And your family, they were peasants, but they worked hard for survival. It is my understanding that also that your father and your mother, they were not true worshippers of God. They worship other things. So we want to talk to you about your growing up. And if you would begin that story of how you grew up. And even with going to school, you've had to walk many miles barefoot, but the survival came through. So if you would go ahead and talk to us a little bit about your childhood and how it was to grow up in a family as such.
I want to tell you that hope never runs dry. Hope never runs dry. If you have hope for at least one day. I was born in one of the remote villages in the world, the village called Nangalama. Deep in the village, deep in the countryside, in Bugedi district. My parents are peasants up to today. I grew up and I was born in a poor family. My parents, as they are peasants, they could cultivate, they could till the ground with a hoe using the strength. No tractor, no nothing. Every morning they wake up to go in the garden, to till the garden to grow some crops so they can get food, so they can sell that crops to get some money for survival. I was a poor child. I'm the second. The firstborn died. I survived anyway. God preserved me. In Uganda, and especially in the rural areas, in the villages, children die of malaria. Every 4 minutes, one child dies. Our firstborn, my parents' firstborn died of malaria. My parents could not afford to take him to the hospital. The hospital is like 24 miles away. They can't walk. So their firstborn died. I myself personally, I suffered a lot by malaria, but I survived. Down in the village where I was born, where there's no electricity, there's no running water, There's no hospitals, and there were no schools. When time came for my parents to take me to school, they took me 7 miles away from home. I walked from home to school every day without shoes, without breakfast, and without lunch. Because at school, they don't provide food for the students. So you survive in your own way. So as a child, walking 7 miles away to go to school and come back, that's 14 miles away to walk every day.
And you did this walking all the way from 1st to 7th grade, I understand.
I walked for 7 years. That's from 1st grade to 7th grade. Without
And
shoes.
How did you maintain that? Because you had no breakfast, no water, no food. So what were your survival methods here? How did you manage to go all day through school without having anything?
I could eat only once when I come back home in the evening. Because I could leave at 6 and reach home at 7 every day from Monday to Friday. So when I get home at 7 p.m., I get when my mother has prepared a little food for me to eat, to put in my stomach. I bathe and go to bed. And the next morning at 6, I'm on my way walking to go to school. I did that for 7 years. I tried my level best because I had the passion. God gave me the desire to go to school. Many students dropped out because of the long distance that we used to walk. But time came when I was going to high school. As you know, my parents are peasants. They could grow millet, they grow maize, they grow sorghum, they grow rice to sell and pay my tuition. But there was a season when droughts hit all the crops and they had nothing to sell to pay for my tuition. So my dad told my mom, what can we do to Milton? He has to go to college. My father decided with my mother to sell the roof of their house because they had nothing. They did not harvest anything. There were no crops to sell to pay for my tuition. So they sold the house and they gave me the money. And I went to school. And they slept under a tree for 3 months with my other siblings.
And the reason why there were no more crops was because of the drought that had come through at that particular time?
Yes, there were no crops because the droughts hit all the crops and they did not harvest anything.
So that pretty much just took away everything.
Yes. And I realized one thing, that in Africa, children suffer as a result of poverty more than adults. Because children that live in poverty, they can't afford to go to school. Children in rural areas, they can't even afford to have an exercise book or to have a pen or a pencil. Those are one of the challenges that children that live in rural areas, in villages face.
And so when your parents were forced to the point that they had to actually sell the roof off of the house, you all slept outside underneath a tree?
Yes.
And so you slept out there for about 3 months?
Yes, as they were coming up with a grass-thatched house. A house thatched with the grass. So it's a hard job.
Yes.
It's really hard work.
I mean, that was a sacrifice that your parents made to even sell the roof off of the house just because they believed in you and wanted better for you. So they had to do what they did to provide this education. But you were determined also because you kept walking those many, many miles.
Of course, I was determined. And I had the passion, I had the dream, I had a vision. I wanted to study. And by God's grace, I managed to go to school.
And that's, you said, you mentioned God's grace, that continued to bless you. But your parents, were they believers? They were not believers.
I was born in a pagan home, pagan family. We did not know God. My parents did not take me to church. We were pagans. But when I was at school, a certain preacher came and preached the gospel to me. And I heard the gospel of the good news. And the Spirit of the Lord touched my heart. And I surrendered my life and I gave my life to Christ.
And at what age was that?
Sorry?
What age was that when you gave your life to Christ?
I was 18. I was 18 years. So I was the first person that God reached out. God bought me from the slave market of sin, and God set me free. And when I had this new life, I had to go home and share the good news with my parents. My parents that were pagans, they did not know God, they did not worship God, they never wanted even to know about Jesus Christ. But when I shared with them about the goodness of the Lord, they surrendered their life to Christ and they gave their life to Christ and they
Amen.
confessed their life to Christ.
That is awesome, because I understand that, your parents being pagans, they used to worship the spirit of the dead. And
Yes.
your father was the leader of an all devil worship. So you're now coming to Christ and you were able to impart this newness in Christ to your parents and they became believers.
Of course, you know what? My father was the leader. He was the leader in that community. And people that were worshiping the devil and Satan, they could invite him to go and build those shrines. They slaughter cows, they slaughter goats, they offer sacrifices to evil spirits.
Idol worshipers.
Yes.
All right. Mr.
So when I share the good news with my dad, and he accepted Christ, and I came with the pastors because we had a lot of shrines at home. So we came with pastors. We demolished the shrines. We put fire on the shrines and we burnt all the herbs that were at home. And we are free, and we are free indeed by the grace of God.
That's awesome. Mr. Opeka, we're going to stop just for a minute to take a commercial break, or we're going to come back and we'll continue with Mr. Milton Opeka talking about, the pagan life, talking about his life in Uganda and living with a peasant family, walking back and forth to school, many, many miles for many, many years. Stay tuned for more. Coming back at you at a place called Through from WYTV7 Christian Broadcasters Network. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Mr. Happy Living here. I love good things made for good people. That's why I love Happy Living's online e-course. It's an 8-week-long deep dive into you and the inspired life you want to live. The life you were put here on this earth to live. The one that you and only you can live. 8 weeks of lectures and ideas and topics and supporting materials and powerful self-improvement tools. All designed for you. All designed to help you create the tools and the power and the confidence you need to discover your purpose and to discover the life you were meant to live and to feel incredibly inspired and motivated to decide you will live your life to its fullest. It's all designed to help you create the unique and distinct philosophy of you and your inspired life. Go to happyliving.com, select our e-course, and save $100 with promo code WYTV7. And for every enrollment, I'll donate another $100 to WYTV7. For $300 and about 30 hours, I promise you'll never, ever be the same again.
To a place called Through, broadcasting from WYTV7 Christian Broadcasters Network. Today we're talking with Mr. Milton Opaya, all the way from Uganda, Africa. Mr. Opaya has been sharing with us his life in Uganda, where education was difficult, where there was no hospitals, even to save the life of one of his siblings, because the hospital that was in existing was many, many miles away. He shared with us his educational process where he had to walk every day, not returning back home until 7 o'clock, lacking in having water and food, any substance until he returned. He grew up in a pagan family of devil worshippers, but it has been the grace of God that has now saved his life at a later age. And so he was able to convict his parents into the belief and worship the true and living God. And so we want to continue with this story about, now that your parents, have found this newness in Christ with you, your family has been saved. And, you were mentioning about them worshiping idols and the house being destroyed. But we learned earlier that they had actually sold the roof off of the house. And you all lived outside underneath a tree for 3 months. So now you have these ministers and people congregating, and your house is now destroyed with all these idols that your parents were worshiping. And so the redemption process begins with you and your family. So take us now to this point that, the redemption has happened. What's going on here from the redemption?
When God did all these miracles in our home, and God gave us new life, and our life has never been the same. And when I finished school, when I graduated, my heart, because when I got saved, I was saying, God, I want to help other kids. Because I know how poverty bites kids. I was a poor child. I started putting on shoes when I'm 17 years. I started sleeping on a mattress. When I'm 17 years, I used to sleep on the mat, on the floor. We had no money we could not afford to buy a mattress to sleep on, not even a bed sheet. So God is so good.
Yes, he is, truly.
When God meets you and changes your life, turns your life around, your life will never be the same again. And I want to let you know, since I met Jesus Christ, he has done great things in me and through me. And when I got a job, I started working and saving money. And my heart was to go back home where I was born, where I was raised, to help poor children, so that children that are poor can have access to free education, so that I can also give them a privilege, so that I can also give them a chance that my parents gave me. I worked.
So you left home at one point to go to college?
Yes. I left home and one point and went to college. So when I finished my education, I got a job. And the back of my mind was to help the poor kids. And when I got a job, I saved money. I worked very hard. And in 2001, I joined the Bible college because I said, God, I want to study. I want to read your word. So I went to Calvary Chapel Bible College in Kampala for 3 years. And God, I learned a lot. And when I was in the Bible college, I thought maybe I'll go and start a church. And as I was moving every day to go to the Bible college, I could meet children, I could see children on the streets. I go every day, I walk to go to the Bible college, and I meet children that live and serve the streets. And when I finished the Bible college, the Spirit of the Lord spoke to my heart and told me, remember, Jesus came 2,000 years ago. He chose 12 people. He shared his life with 12 men. He taught 12 men. He built 12 men, but he not built the church. And the Spirit of the Lord directed me to go to the children that live and stay on the streets. I was like, God, how can I do this? And the Spirit of the Lord told me, street children lack self-esteem. Because being on the street is being dirty and being ill. Street children are not good to look at. They're vulnerable. They're abused. And those are the very people that God sent me to rescue them. So in 2007, I started a street rescue mission on Kampala streets. I started to go on the streets to reach out to children that live and serve the streets. I talked to them. I hired a home and I called them and they came in. And we started counseling. We started sharing the message, the word of God with them. And that's how we started the church. We started the church with the little kids, with street children, with children that are despised. We started as Christian Fellowship Church, Saving Grace. We call it Saving Grace Christian Fellowship. I told those kids, you know what? We are here by the grace of God. They accepted. They believed in Jesus Christ. And today, we have rescued and reached over 3,500 street kids with the gospel of Jesus Christ.
And that's awesome. That's awesome how God took you back, but he had to take you back to move you forward with the mission of hope that you have.
Yes. So we started a child with kids, with children. We started as a fellowship. And today, in my village where I was born, we have Saving Grace Christian Fellowship Church. We have over 1,000 mature people that come to our church every Sunday and every midweek service Wednesday. So God has done great things in our lives.
He has truly done great things to bring you through where you started out from. And now those life experiences, look how many, kids and families that you're making that difference in their lives for them. Because we know that you also moved on from the church now to a school arena here, helping to educate many, many children. So talk to us about the school.
Now, in 2007, when we started Shelter for the Street Kids, we started reaching out. Back in my mind, I come from the village called Nangalama. I was like, I have to go back home and buy land and build a school for children who cannot afford to have access to education. So I went back to my village where I was born, where I was raised. I bought land. I built a school. And today we have over 350 children that we care for that have access to free education. So all this is God that has done it, not me. God has just a vessel.
He gave you the strength, the wisdom, and as you said, the knowledge to do so.
Yes. That's why I say that hope never runs dry. That's our motto.
Mm-hmm.
Hope never runs dry. Yes.
And as long as you believe and you keep that faith, hope never runs dry. And, by you impacting the lives of these children, have you been able to go back home and share your stories with your family and your other siblings and the other children that you grew up with?
This is what I do every day. That's my job, to share my experience, to share my life, and to share the grace of God that God has put in my life with other people. That's why I'm sharing with you today. That's why I'm talking to you now about what God has done in my life. God
Awesome.
has done great things.
Awesome.
You know what?
That because you've done so much, for our listeners and our viewers, if they wanted to reach out to you or maybe join your mission by making a donation to you or maybe other means of support, how can they do so? Because we kind of like at the last 5 minutes, and I want to be sure that our listeners and our viewers can reach out to you so that you can continue with your mission of hope and sharing your story of how God has done what? Given you hope and encouragement. So we want you to share. Is there a way that people can reach out to you at the school or your church?
Yes.
Go
We,
ahead
we,
and share
we,
that
will,
with us.
we have many ways. We want people who can come and volunteer with us. We want people that can come out and volunteer and see what we are doing and be part of what you're doing, because it's good when you get involved in what you're seeing. But also those who want to support us, they're free to give us some support. We have a website, we have email, we have our ministry account. We want people to come down to Africa. We want people who can come and volunteer. People can come and visit and be part of what we're doing, because this is about us. It's about God. I understand. I know one thing, that prayer and faith is invisible, but it works. It
What can
works.
you give us your website? What is the your website?
My website is africancharlieneed.com.
And what kind of needs from your volunteers do you need at this point? What can they help you with?
Uh, I want the volunteers to come and help us with the teaching the children. They can do anything. They can teach, they can sing, they can play soccer with the children, they can encourage, they can share the gospel, they can help with clothes, with books, with pens. Whatever God touches them to do is welcome.
Are you looking for any health and wellness? You're just looking for educational clothing?
Yes, you know what? We have a school deep in the village where there's no electricity, where there's no running water, where there's no hospital.
Well, and
So
your website is givehopepeace.com is your website.
yes,
And you can reach again Mr. Milton Opea, all the way from Uganda, Africa. And his website, if you'd like to support his mission, it is givehopein.com. And we'll put it up for you again. It is givehopeacin.com. We ask that you reach out to Mr. Opea all the way in Uganda, Africa, so that you can help with their mission of hope by they want clothing, food, health and wellness, whatever you can do to help them with books and pens, writing materials, as well, book bags, shoes, clothing. Mr. Opea, we are sorry, but we are out of time. But we invite you to come back to follow up with us on your story about your church and your education and how things are doing and how the volunteers who are listening and hearing your story today are reaching out to you. So we do hope that our listeners and our viewers will reach out to you and support your mission. So I invite you to come back again, Mr. Opea, to be my guest on A Place Called Through at WYTV7 Christian Broadcasters Network. I've been your host, Patricia Wade Goings, and to be a guest, please reach out to me again at pgoingswp@gmail.com. By phone, you may reach me in area code of 843-608-9744. Please follow me at A Place Called Through on Facebook, A Place Called Through at Willpower, the call to rise above. You've heard it from Mr. Milton Opey, all the way from Uganda, South African, from peasant to walking to school, and now educating and empowering youth all over in South Africa. We welcome you again and thank you for being our guest. And we hope that all goes well and that our listeners will reach out to you. God bless you on your mission of hope.
Thank you. God bless you too.